Excuse me, you're in my seat. First class is for paying passengers only. The words cut through the quiet hum of transatlantic airways, Flight 214, like a knife. Dr. Maya Robinson looked up from seat 1A to see a woman standing over her blonde hair, styled in perfect waves, designer Hermes bag dangling from one shoulder, silk blouse tailored to perfection. Victoria Ashford, 44, looked down at Maya with the kind of certainty that comes from never being told no. "I'm sorry," what Maya said, pulling off her noise-canceling headphones. Victoria gestured vaguely toward the back of the aircraft, her diamond bracelet catching the cabin light. "I said you're in the wrong section. Premium economy and coach are that way. This is first class." Maya blinked the exhaustion of the past 36 hours, making everything feel slightly surreal. She'd just finished back-to-back surgeries at New York Presbyterian. She hadn't slept, and now this. "I'm in seat 1, Amaya said calmly, holding up her phone to show the digital boarding pass. "My name is Robinson. This is my assigned seat." Victoria didn't even glance at the phone. "That's impossible. I specifically booked this row for privacy. There must be some kind of mistake with the system." "There's no mistake," Maya replied, her voice steady but firm. "I paid for this seat. Now please take your seat in 1B so we can depart on time. Before we dive into what happens next, tell me where you're watching from. Comment your city below. And if this moment of raw discrimination stops you in your tracks, hit that subscribe button. Because in exactly 18 minutes, this woman is about to learn a lesson she'll never forget." What Victoria didn't know was that in less than 20 minutes, the captain would make an announcement that would destroy her career and change her life forever. She didn't know that the woman she was trying to remove from seat 1A was flying on an emergency medical mission, and she definitely didn't know that the child whose life depended on this flight was the daughter of her own CEO. But she was about to find out. Victoria crossed her arms, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her designer bag. "We'll see about that," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. She snapped her fingers down the aisle. "Excuse me, flight attendant. We have a situation here." A young Latina woman in a crisp transatlantic uniform hurried up the aisle, her name tag reading Jennifer Lopez. She was 28, fresh-faced, and clearly anxious about whatever was happening in the premium cabin. "Yes, ma'am. Is everything all right?" Jennifer asked, her customer service smile already straining. "No, everything is not all right," Victoria said, pointing a rigid finger at Maya. "This woman is sitting in seat 1A. I need you to verify her ticket and escort her to her correct seat. I'm certain there's been an error." Jennifer glanced nervously between Victoria and Maya. "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let me just check." She pulled out her tablet, tapping the screen. "Can I see your boarding pass, ma'am?" Maya held up her phone again, the digital pass clearly visible. "Seat 1A. Dr. Maya Robinson." Jennifer's shoulders relaxed slightly. "Yes, I see it here. Dr. Robinson, you're confirmed for 1A. Everything looks correct." "That's impossible," Victoria interrupted, her voice rising. "Run it again. Check the credit card. I guarantee there's been some kind of fraud." "Ma'am, the ticket is valid," Jennifer said gently. "Dr. Robinson is in her assigned seat." "Then reassign her," Victoria snapped. "I paid full fare for this seat. I specifically requested this row. I am a Platinum Elite member of this airline, and I expect a certain level of service." Maya had been quiet through this exchange, but now she leaned forward slightly. "Ma'am, I'm in seat 1A. You're in 1B. That's how assigned seating works. Please sit down." Victoria's face flushed red. "Don't tell me what to do. I know exactly what you're doing. You saw an empty first-class cabin and thought you could sneak up here before takeoff. I've seen this before. I paid $8,700 for this seat," Maya said, her voice still calm but with an edge of steel. "Now please take your seat so we can leave on time." $8,000. Victoria let out a sharp, mocking laugh. Please, people like you don't buy tickets like that. You either used miles from someone else's account or you're completely bankrupting yourself for an Instagram photo. From across the aisle, an elderly British man in seat 2A lowered his Financial Times newspaper. His bushy white eyebrows furrowed as he watched the confrontation unfold. Victoria pulled out her phone, waving it at Jennifer. I have Richard Caldwell on speed dial, the CEO of this airline. We're personal friends. One call and this situation will be resolved immediately. Another flight attendant appeared, Emma Hayes, 32, with auburn hair pulled back in a tight bun. She assessed the situation quickly. Is there a problem here? Victoria turned to her with visible relief. Yes, thank God. Someone competent. This woman, she gestured at Maya, has somehow accessed a first-class seat that she clearly cannot afford. I need you to run a credit check on her ticket. I'm certain it's fraudulent. Emma glanced at Jennifer's tablet, then at Maya. Ma'am, your ticket is confirmed and paid in full. Is there something else we can help you with? Victoria's voice dropped to a harsh whisper, but it was loud enough for half the cabin to hear. I cannot sit next to someone who clearly doesn't belong here. I need her moved. Now. Maya's jaw tightened. She'd heard variations of this her entire life, but it never stopped stinging. The assumption, the certainty, the absolute conviction that she didn't deserve to be where she was. She met Victoria's eyes. I'm not moving. I have every right to be in this seat. And frankly, your behavior is becoming harassment. Harassment. Victoria's voice shot up an octave. I'm the one being harassed. I paid for peace and quiet, not to deal with someone trying to scam their way into first class. Jennifer stepped between them, her hands raised in a placating gesture. Ladies, please, let me get the purser. We'll sort this out. Sort what out? Maya said, her patience finally fraying. My ticket is valid. My seat is correct. The only problem here is her refusal to accept reality. Victoria pulled her phone out again, fingers flying across the screen. Fine. If no one else will handle this, I will. She pressed the phone to her ear, turning her back to Maya. Richard. Yes, it's Victoria. I'm on the plane now, and we have a situation. David Park, a 34-year-old tech entrepreneur in seat 2C, had been watching the entire exchange over the top of his laptop. He slowly reached for his phone, opened his live streaming app, and pointed the camera toward the confrontation. I'm filming this, David said loudly, his voice carrying through the cabin. People need to see what's happening. Maya turned toward him, exhaustion and frustration flashing across her face. Please don't. We can resolve this professionally. David shook his head, his phone steady. 20,000 people are watching my stream right now. They deserve to know what's going on. The British gentleman in 2A, Arthur Whitmore, 67, wearing a perfectly tailored Savile Row suit, set his newspaper down entirely. Good Lord, he said, his accent cutting through the tension. What is this nonsense, young lady? You're making a complete spectacle of yourself. Victoria spun around. Stay out of this, old man. This doesn't concern you. Arthur's eyes narrowed. I've flown first class for 40 years, and I have never seen such appalling behavior. This woman has shown you her valid ticket multiple times. Sit down and stop embarrassing yourself. In seat 3, D. Carmen Rodriguez, a 29-year-old fashion buyer from Miami, leaned toward her girlfriend. This is disgusting, she whispered, but loud enough for others to hear. Should we say something? Her girlfriend pulled out her phone. I'm recording too. This is going straight to Reddit. Carmen raised her voice. Ma'am, just sit down. You're holding up the entire flight. Some of us have connections to make. Victoria whirled on her. Mind your own business, all of you. This is between me and the airline staff. From seat 4, a James Mitchell stood up. The 41-year-old attorney was tall, imposing, and clearly fed up. I'm a lawyer. he said, his voice calm but authoritative. "What you're doing right now constitutes harassment. You've made multiple discriminatory statements. I'm documenting everything." Victoria's face was now a mottled purple. "Discriminatory. How dare you? I have plenty of colleagues who are—" "I am not a racist. This is about proper procedures." "Then what is it about?" James asked, crossing his arms. "Because from where I'm standing, you've been told 5 times that this woman's ticket is valid. The only reason you're still arguing is because you don't think she belongs here. And we all know why." David spoke to his live stream, his voice carrying through the cabin. "Chat is blowing up. 500 comments in 30 seconds. Everyone's asking what airline this is." Carmen was typing on her phone. "It's already on Twitter. #transatlantic racism is starting to trend." Emma, the flight attendant, looked increasingly panicked. "Please, everyone, we need to maintain order. Let me get the purser to handle this." Victoria was still on her phone, but her call had clearly not gone the way she expected. She lowered it, her expression shifting from confident to frustrated. "Richard is calling the captain right now," she announced, her voice trembling slightly with barely contained rage. "You have 2 minutes to gather your belongings and move to your actual seat. This is your final warning." Maya didn't move. She simply looked at Victoria with the kind of calm that comes from years of dealing with people who underestimate her. "I'm going to say this one more time. I am in my correct seat. I am not moving. If you have a problem with that, take it up with the airline. But you will not bully me off this plane." The cabin fell silent except for the quiet murmur of David's live stream commentary and the clicking of cameras as passengers documented every moment. Jennifer returned with Maria Gonzalez, the head purser, a 45-year-old woman with 20 years of experience and 0 patience for drama. Maria's eyes swept the scene, taking in Victoria's flushed face, Maya's calm composure, and the multiple passengers with phones out. "Someone want to tell me what's going on here?" Maria asked, her voice carrying the weight of authority. The word hung in the air. "Doctor." Victoria had said it with such contempt, such obvious disbelief that it hit Maya like a physical blow. "Doctor," as if it were the punchline to a joke. Maya had heard that tone before. It never got easier. She was 23 years old again, standing in the hallway of Boston General Hospital. Her first day as a surgical resident. She'd been on her feet for 18 hours, her scrubs wrinkled and stained with the proof of her work. She was exhausted, exhilarated, terrified, and proud all at once. Dr. Whitman, a senior, attending surgeon in his 60s, had stopped her near the nurses' station. He'd looked at her with the same expression Victoria wore now, puzzled, dismissive, certain. "Excuse me, can you grab me a coffee? 2 sugars, no cream." Maya had blinked at him confused. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm Dr. Robinson. I'm the new cardiac fellow. I just finished assisting on the valve replacement in OR3. Dr. Whitman had laughed, actually laughed. "You're a doctor. Sure you are. Look, I don't have time for games. The kitchen staff entrance is downstairs." "I'm not kitchen staff," Maya had said, her voice shaking with a mixture of anger and humiliation. "Dr. Chen was supervising my surgery this morning. You can check with, I'll be speaking to administration about this." Dr. Whitman had interrupted, turning away. "We can't have people impersonating physicians. It's a liability issue." Maya had stood there in that hallway watching him walk away, feeling the eyes of nurses and orderlies on her, some sympathetic, some amused, all witnesses to her humiliation. She'd made it to her car before the tears came. She'd sat in the parking garage for 20 minutes crying so hard she couldn't breathe, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake choosing this career, wondering if it would always be this hard, wondering if she'd spend her entire life proving she belonged. Then she'd dried her eyes, checked her reflection in the rearview mirror, walked back into that hospital, and spent the next 14 years becoming one of the best pediatric cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. Not to prove Dr. Whitman wrong. Not to prove anyone wrong. to prove herself right, to prove that she belonged exactly where she was. She'd operated on hundreds of children, saved countless lives, published research papers, trained residents, built a reputation. And still she sat on planes and heard that same tone. Dr. Really. Maya looked at Victoria Ashford now and saw Dr. Whitman's smirk repeated. The same assumption, the same dismissal, the same absolute certainty that someone who looked like her couldn't possibly have earned her place. But Maya wasn't 23 anymore. She wasn't standing alone in a hospital hallway wondering if she should fight back. She was 37. She was chief of pediatric cardiac surgery. She had a team. She had a reputation. And right now she had a plane full of witnesses with cameras rolling. And unlike that moment 14 years ago, this time she wasn't going to let it slide. This time someone would be held accountable. Maya took a slow breath, centered herself, and looked Victoria Ashford directly in the eyes. "I'm in the right seat," she said quietly. "Thank you." Victoria's patience, already hanging by a thread, finally snapped. She leaned down, her face inches from Maya's, her voice low and venomous. "I've given you multiple chances to do the right thing. You're forcing my hand." She reached down and grabbed Maya's carry-on bag from under the seat in front of her. Ma'am Emma, the flight attendant, rushed forward. "You cannot touch another passenger's belongings." Victoria yanked the bag into the aisle. "If she won't move, I'll move her things for her." Maya stood up, her voice calm, but her eyes blazing. "Put my bag down. Now." Or what Victoria challenged, holding the bag against her chest like a shield. "You'll call security. I am security. I donate more to this airline in a year than you probably make in your entire career. That's the third time you've touched my property," Maya said, her voice dropping to ice. "The fourth time, I'll press charges for theft." Maria Gonzalez stepped between them, her presence immediately commanding. Ms. Ashford put the bag down immediately. "This is your final warning." Victoria thrust the bag toward Maria. "Fine, but I want this woman's ticket verified by your manager. I want a credit check. I want her identification run through your database, because I know for a fact that she does not belong in this cabin. Her ticket is valid." Maria said, her voice steady and authoritative. "It's been verified 3 times, by 2 flight attendants and now by me. Dr. Robinson is in her correct seat." Dr. Victoria scoffed the word, dripping with sarcasm. "Let me guess. Ph.D. in ethnic studies, women's studies. Everyone calls themselves doctor these days." Arthur Whitmore stood up from his seat across the aisle, his British accent sharp with indignation. "Good grief, woman. What you're really saying is she can't afford this seat because she's black. Just say it plainly if you're going to be a bigot." Victoria's face flushed an even deeper red. "How dare you? I am not. I have plenty of black colleagues. This isn't about race. This is about someone trying to scam their way into what James Mitchell, the attorney, was on his feet now, too. Into a seat she paid for. I'm documenting every word of this. You've now created a textbook hostile environment, made explicit discriminatory statements, and physically touched another passenger's property. You're 1 step away from assault." David Park, still streaming, spoke to his camera. 50,000 viewers now. This is going viral in real time. The chat is insane. Victoria spun on him. "Turn that off. You're violating my privacy." "You're in a public space," David said calmly. "I have every right to film." Victoria pulled out her phone again, her hands shaking with rage. "Fine, fine. If none of you incompetent people will handle this, I will." She dialed, pressing the phone to her ear. Her voice took on a sickly sweet tone when someone answered. "Richard." "It's Victoria. Yes, I'm on flight 214 right now. We have a serious situation. A woman has stolen a first-class seat. Yes, stolen. Your crew is refusing to remove her. I need you to call the captain immediately and authorize her removal. If this isn't handled in the next 2 minutes, I'm filing a formal complaint with the board." She listened, her smile growing more confident. "Thank you, Richard. I knew you'd understand." She ended the call and looked around the cabin triumphantly. "The CEO is calling the cockpit right now. You have exactly 2 minutes to gather your things," she said to Maya. "After that, security will escort you off." Maya didn't respond. She simply sat back down, put her headphones on, and closed her eyes. The message was clear. "I'm not going anywhere." Victoria stood there, bag in hand, face flushed with righteous indignation, absolutely certain she'd won. Maria spoke quietly to Emma. "Get the captain. Now." Emma nodded and hurried to the forward galley, picking up the intercom phone to the flight deck. Carmen Rodriguez leaned toward her girlfriend. "I've never seen a captain come out before takeoff." Arthur sat back down, folding his newspaper. "In 40 years, neither have I. This woman has no idea what she's done." David continued his live stream commentary. "This is unreal. 70,000 viewers now. Everyone wants to know what happens next." Victoria checked her watch, tapping her foot impatiently. "Any minute now. The captain is going to come out here and you're all going to apologize to me." James Mitchell shook his head. "Lady, I'd bet my law degree that this ends very differently than you think." The tension in the cabin was suffocating. Passengers in premium economy were craning their necks to see. Some had their phones out. Others whispered to their seatmates. Everyone sensed they were watching something significant unfold. And then the sound that made everyone go silent. The heavy, reinforced cockpit door unlocked with a sharp metallic click. The cockpit door swung open. Every head in first class turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even David Park's live stream commentary went silent. Captain Jonathan Douglas stepped into the cabin. He was a tall, broad-shouldered African-American man in his mid-50s, with silver-gray hair and a presence that commanded immediate respect. His uniform was immaculate, 4 gold stripes on each shoulder, wings pinned precisely over his left breast pocket, every button gleaming. His expression was carved from granite. He walked past the galley, past the flight attendants, and stopped at row 1. Victoria immediately stepped into the aisle, her face lighting up with vindication. "Captain, thank you for coming. I'm Victoria Ashford, Senior Vice President of Strategic Acquisitions at Caldwell Global Investments. I've already spoken with Richard Caldwell about this situation. He said you'd handle it?" Captain Douglas held up one hand, silencing her. He didn't even look at her. Instead, he turned to Maya. "Dr. Robinson." Maya opened her eyes and removed her headphones, looking up at him with exhaustion and wariness. "Yes." Captain Douglas's expression softened, his voice respectful. "I'm Captain Douglas. I apologize for this disturbance." "Are you all right?" Maya blinked, surprised by the genuine concern in his tone. "I'm fine, Captain. I just want to get to London. I have a patient waiting." "I'm aware of your mission," Dr. Captain Douglas said. He held up a tablet. "I have your VIP clearance here. You'll get there, I promise." Victoria pushed forward, trying to insert herself between the captain and Maya. "Excuse me, VIP clearance? This is absurd, Captain. I demand you verify her ticket. Check her credit card. Check her background. She clearly doesn't belong here," Arthur Whitmore called out from his seat. "That's the 5th time you've said it. We all hear what you mean." Victoria spun on him. "I am not a racist. This is about proper procedures. This is about you creating a hostile environment on my aircraft." Captain Douglas interrupted, his voice cutting like a blade. Victoria's mouth fell open. "How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who I am?" "A passenger," Captain Douglas said flatly. "That's all you are on this plane. A passenger, and right now you're a passenger who's violated multiple regulations. I'm calling Richard back." Victoria threatened pulling out her phone again. "When he hears how you're treating me." "Go ahead, Captain," Douglas said. "Call him. In fact, let me help you." He pulled out his own phone and tapped the screen. "I have his direct line right here. Would you like me to dial it for you?" Victoria faltered, confusion flickering across her face. You have Richard Caldwell's number." "I do," Captain Douglas said. "We've spoken 3 times today already. Would you like to know what those conversations were about?" Victoria's confidence began to crack. What Captain Douglas turned to face the entire cabin, his voice carrying to every passenger. "Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the delay. We'll be underway shortly. But first I need to address something important." He looked back at Victoria. "Ms. Ashford, you mentioned you know Mr. Caldwell personally, that you had dinner with him recently." Victoria nodded quickly. "Yes, we golf together. Our families are close, which is why I know he'll back me up on this." Captain Douglas tilted his head slightly. "Did he seem distracted at that dinner? Worried about anything?" Victoria's brow furrowed. I don't see how that's relevant." "Did he mention his daughter, Sophie?" Victoria shifted uncomfortably. "Yes, his daughter goes to boarding school in London." "What does this have to do with anything?" Captain Douglas's expression hardened. "Sophie Caldwell is 8 years old. She's not at boarding school." Victoria's face showed the first real flicker of doubt. "Then where is she?" The captain paused, letting the weight of the moment build. "She's in a hospital in London, fighting for her life." The cabin went completely silent. Even David Park's live-stream chat seemed to pause, as if the viewers on the other end of the phone could sense the shift in the air. What Victoria's voice came out small, uncertain. "What are you talking about?" Captain Douglas held his tablet, but he wasn't looking at it anymore. He was looking directly at Victoria, and his eyes were hard as steel. "Sophie Caldwell collapsed during gymnastics practice yesterday afternoon. She was rushed to Royal London Hospital. The emergency MRI revealed a severe congenital cardiac defect." Victoria took a step backward, her hand coming up to her chest. I didn't know." Richard didn't say anything. Why would he? Captain Douglas asked. "He's been on the phone with specialists for 20 hours straight trying to save his daughter's life. I doubt he had time to update his entire executive team on his family's medical crisis." Victoria's face was pale now. "But what does this have to do with everything Captain Douglas said?" "It has everything to do with why you're about to have the worst day of your life." He turned slightly so the entire cabin could hear him. "The cardiologists at Royal London told Richard Caldwell that Sophie has maybe 48 hours before complete heart failure. Maybe less. The defect is so rare, so complex, that only 3 surgeons in the world are qualified to perform the operation she needs." James Mitchell was leaning forward in his seat now, his attorney's brain already putting the pieces together. Arthur Whitmore had gone completely still. Carmen Rodriguez grabbed her girlfriend's hand. David Park's live stream viewer count had hit 100,000. Captain Douglas continued. "One of those surgeons is in Australia. Too far. One is in Singapore. Also too far. And the third?" He paused, letting the tension build to an unbearable level. "The third is the chief of pediatric cardiac surgery at New York Presbyterian Hospital." Victoria's hand started to tremble. No, that's not Mr. Caldwell's personal assistant called our executive dispatch team at 6 o'clock this morning," Captain Douglas said, his voice ringing through the cabin, "begging us, pleading for an emergency priority seat on this exact flight. They didn't care about the cost. They paid $8,700 for a last-minute ticket without asking for a discount or a favor." Victoria shook her head slowly, denial written all over her face. "They paid it because every single minute counts," Captain Douglas said. "Because a little girl is dying, and there's only one person in the Western Hemisphere who can save her." He turned to face Maya directly. Dr. Maya Robinson, Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery, Specialist in Complex Congenital Heart Defects. The woman you've spent the last 20 minutes trying to throw off this plane is flying to London to save Richard Caldwell's daughter's life. The words hit Victoria like a physical blow. Her knees buckled. She grabbed the headrest of seat 1B to keep from falling. The cabin erupted. "Oh my God," Carmen breathed. "Holy hell," Arthur said, his British reserve finally cracking. James Mitchell was shaking his head in disbelief. "I've seen a lot of karma in my career, but this..." David Park's voice carried through the cabin as he narrated to his live stream. "She just tried to kick off the surgeon flying to save her own boss's daughter. 120,000 viewers. This is the most insane thing I've ever witnessed." Victoria's mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Her face had gone from red to white to a sickly gray-green. She looked at Maya with horror-struck eyes. I didn't... How was I supposed to know?" "You weren't supposed to know," Captain Douglas said coldly. "That's the entire point." But she didn't say anything. Victoria's voice was rising toward hysteria. "She didn't tell me she was a doctor. She didn't tell me it was an emergency. She told you 5 times that she had the right seat." Arthur called out. "You refused to listen." Victoria reached toward Maya, her hands shaking. "Dr. Robinson, please. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I was stressed from the traffic and my morning was terrible and I just... You assumed I didn't belong here because of the color of my skin," Maya said quietly, her voice steady but sharp as a scalpel. "Your stress didn't make you racist, Miss Ashford. It revealed what you already were." No, Victoria was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. I'm not a racist. I have black friends. I've donated to charities. This was just a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding." James Mitchell stood up again. "You touched her property. You demanded credit checks. You called her a fraud. You said people like her don't buy expensive tickets. We all heard it. It's on video." Victoria turned to Captain Douglas, tears streaming down her face. "Please, Richard is my friend. If he finds out I delayed his daughter's surgeon, my career, I have a family. I have a mortgage. Please, just don't tell him. I'll sit down. I'll be quiet. We can forget this happened." "It's too late for that," Captain Douglas said. Victoria's voice cracked. "What do you mean?" Captain Douglas held up his tablet. 78 passengers witnessed this. 4 of them have been live streaming. Your name has been mentioned multiple times. The video is already on 3 different social media platforms." David Park nodded. 140,000 viewers right now. "And climbing." Victoria's legs finally gave out. She sank into seat 1B, her designer bag falling to the floor. No, this can't be happening." Captain Douglas looked around the cabin, to James Mitchell, to Arthur Whitmore, to Carmen Rodriguez, to every passenger who had witnessed the confrontation. Then he looked at Victoria. "Ms. Ashford, under Federal Aviation Regulation 121.580, I have the authority to refuse transport to any passenger who poses a threat to the safety, security, or order of this flight." Victoria's head snapped up. "But I apologized. I'll sit down. I won't say another word." "Say, you verbally harassed a passenger using discriminatory language." Captain Douglas continued, his voice implacable. "You physically touched another passenger's property without consent. You threatened my crew. You attempted to use your corporate position to intimidate airline personnel. And most critically, you attempted to have an emergency medical transport removed from this aircraft." "I didn't know," Victoria sobbed. "Ignorance is not an excuse," Captain Douglas said. "And frankly, Ms. Ashford, you wouldn't have treated a white passenger this way. We both know it." Victoria had no response to that. She sat there, tears running down her face. her career and reputation crumbling around her. Maria Gonzalez stepped forward. "Captain Airport Security is standing by at the gate." Victoria's eyes went wide with terror. "No, no, please, not security. I'll leave quietly. Just let me walk off. Please." Captain Douglas looked at her without pity. "You have two choices. You can walk off this aircraft voluntarily right now, or security will escort you off in handcuffs. But either way, you're leaving this plane." For exactly 7 seconds, no sound existed in the first-class cabin of Flight 214, except the low hum of auxiliary power and the quiet sobbing of Victoria Ashford. Maya sat perfectly still in Seat 1, her hands folded in her lap, watching the woman who had tried to humiliate her now dissolve into tears. There was no triumph on Maya's face, no smirking, no sense of victory, only exhaustion and the quiet certainty of someone who had been proven right yet again, at enormous cost. Victoria's skin had gone from flushed red to ash gray. Her hands trembled violently as she gripped the armrests of Seat 1B. The designer handbag that had been perched so perfectly on her shoulder now lay forgotten on the floor. Her perfect hair was disheveled. Her silk blouse was wrinkled. The elegant woman who had boarded 25 minutes ago was gone, replaced by someone who had just watched her entire life collapse. The cabin passengers were frozen in place, phones still recording, mouths hanging open in shock. David Park spoke softly into his live stream. "Oh my God. She just tried to kick off the surgeon flying to save her boss's daughter. 180,000 viewers. Chat is absolutely exploding." Carmen Rodriguez whispered to her girlfriend, her voice barely audible. I can't even process this. This is the most insane thing I've ever seen." Arthur Whitmore shook his head slowly. "In 40 years of flying, I have never witnessed karma arrive so swiftly or so completely." James Mitchell, the attorney, pulled out a business card and handed it to Maya. "Dr. Robinson, if you need legal representation for what just happened here, call me. Every passenger in this cabin is a witness." Victoria looked up at Maya, her eyes red and desperate. "Dr. Robinson, please. I am begging you." "I didn't know. If you tell Richard what happened, I'll lose everything. My job, my reputation, my career, please. I have 2 kids in college. I have a mortgage. I'll do anything. Just please don't tell him what happened here." Maya met her eyes. Her voice was calm, measured, and absolutely final. "Ms. Ashford, I don't need to tell him anything." She gestured to the phones around the cabin. 180,000 people just watched you try to have me removed from this flight. Richard Caldwell will know what you did within the hour. Everyone will know." Victoria made a choking sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Captain Douglas stepped forward. "Ms. Ashford, stand up. It's time for you to leave the aircraft." Victoria didn't move. She sat there, frozen, her mind clearly trying to find some escape route that didn't exist. "Now, Miss Ashford." Captain Douglas repeated. Slowly, Victoria stood. Her legs were shaking so badly she had to steady herself against the seat. She looked around the cabin at all the faces staring back at her, some angry, some disgusted, some pitying, all judging. Captain Douglas spoke quietly to Maria. "Escort her off. Make sure security is waiting." Maria nodded. "Ms. Ashford, please gather your belongings and come with me." Victoria bent down to pick up her handbag, her hands trembling so hard she nearly dropped it twice. She turned one last time to Maya. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Maya didn't respond. She simply put her noise-canceling headphones back on and closed her eyes, effectively erasing Victoria from her awareness. The message was clear. "You're not worth my energy anymore." Victoria stumbled backward into the aisle, tears streaming down her face. Maria took her gently by the elbow and began walking her toward the exit. As Victoria passed David Park in Seat 2C, she saw herself on his phone screen, her face frozen in an angry sneer pointing at Maya. The view counter read 200,000. She walked faster, desperate to escape the judgment. When she passed Arthur Whitmore, the elderly British gentleman spoke just loud enough for her to hear. "You did this to yourself, remember that." When she passed James Mitchell, he simply shook his head. When she passed Carmen Rodriguez, the young woman said quietly, "I hope you learned something from this." Victoria reached the aircraft door. 2 airport police officers stood waiting on the jet bridge. She looked back one final time at the first-class cabin, at all those phones, all those cameras, all those witnesses to her destruction. Then she stepped off the plane. The heavy door closed behind her with a dull, final thud. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then Arthur Whitmore began a slow, deliberate clap. The sound echoed through the cabin. Within seconds, other passengers joined him. The applause started in first class and rippled backward through premium economy. Even David Park's live stream chat was filled with applause emojis. Maya kept her eyes closed, but a small, tired smile crossed her face. Captain Douglas stood at the front of the first-class cabin waiting for the applause to die down. When silence finally returned, he addressed the passengers directly. "Ladies and gentlemen, I want to explain what just happened and why I made the decision I did." Every eye in the cabin was on him. Under federal aviation regulations, the captain has supreme authority over the aircraft. That authority includes the right to deny boarding or remove any passenger who poses a risk to the safety, security, or good order of the flight. He paused, letting that sink in. Ms. Ashford violated multiple regulations. She harassed a fellow passenger. She made explicitly discriminatory statements. She physically touched another passenger's property without consent. She threatened my crew. And she attempted to use her corporate influence to have an emergency medical transport removed from this aircraft. Arthur Whitmore nodded approvingly. James Mitchell was taking notes. But beyond the regulations, Captain Douglas continued, his voice taking on a harder edge. What Ms. Ashford did was fundamentally wrong. She looked at Dr. Robinson and made an assumption based solely on the color of her skin. She decided that a black woman could not possibly belong in first class, could not possibly afford an expensive ticket, could not possibly be a doctor. Several passengers shifted uncomfortably. The truth was uncomfortable to hear stated so plainly. "And here's what I want all of you to understand," Captain Douglas said. "Dr. Robinson is one of the finest cardiac surgeons in the country. She has saved hundreds of lives. She has trained countless residents. She has published groundbreaking research, and right now an 8-year-old girl is lying in a hospital bed in London, her heart failing, waiting for Dr. Robinson to arrive." His voice grew quieter, more intense. "If we had delayed this flight any longer, if we had allowed Ms. Ashford to continue her harassment, that little girl might have died. Do you understand that? A child's life hung in the balance while a grown woman threw a temper tantrum because she didn't want to sit next to someone whose skin was a different color than hers." The cabin was dead silent. Captain Douglas looked directly at Maya. "Dr. Robinson, on behalf of Transatlantic Airways, I apologize. You should never have been subjected to that treatment. It was disgraceful, and it will not be tolerated." Maya opened her eyes and nodded. "Thank you, Captain." Captain Douglas turned back to the cabin. "Ms. Ashford's Platinum Elite status has been revoked. She is permanently banned from Transatlantic Airways. A formal incident report will be filed with the FAA, and I will personally be recommending that all major carriers be notified of this incident." Arthur Whitmore spoke up. "Captain, I've been flying for 40 years and I've never seen someone handle a situation with such clarity and moral authority." "Well done, sir." "Hear, hear," James Mitchell added. Several other passengers murmured agreement. Captain Douglas allowed himself a small smile. "Now, if everyone will please take their seats, we have a flight to London to complete. We've already lost 35 minutes and Dr. Robinson has a patient waiting." He turned and walked back toward the cockpit. As he reached the door, he paused and looked back. "And, ladies and gentlemen, if any of you are uncomfortable sitting near Dr. Robinson because of her race, this is your opportunity to exit the aircraft." Anyone no good. Because she's one of the most valuable passengers this airline has ever carried. With that, he disappeared into the cockpit. The door closed behind him with a solid click. 2 minutes later, the PA system chimed. Captain Douglas's deep voice filled the entire aircraft first-class premium economy main cabin, all the way to the back row. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. I apologize for the delay in our departure this morning. We had to remove a passenger who believed that wealth and status entitled her to treat another human being with contempt and disrespect." Passengers throughout the plane looked up from their phones and magazines. At Transatlantic Airways, we have zero tolerance for discrimination of any kind. If you cannot treat every passenger with basic human dignity and respect, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or appearance, you are not welcome on our aircraft. Period. In the main cabin, a mother with 2 young children nodded firmly. An elderly couple held hands. A college student stopped scrolling through social media to listen. "It is my profound honor," Captain Douglas continued, "to welcome aboard today Dr. Maya Robinson, Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery at New York Presbyterian Hospital, and one of the world's leading specialists in complex congenital heart defects." Throughout the plane, passengers began to clap again. Dr. Robinson is traveling on an emergency medical mission. A child's life depends on her getting to London as quickly as possible. Thanks to the inexcusable behavior of the passenger we just removed, we've lost 35 minutes. I will do everything in my power to make up that time in the air. The applause grew louder. Dr. Robinson represents the absolute best of humanity, dedication, excellence, and grace under pressure. The passenger we removed represented the worst prejudice, entitlement, and cruelty. I know which one deserves to fly on my aircraft. Even passengers in the back of the plane who hadn't witnessed the confrontation were clapping now. To everyone on board today, thank you for your patience. To Dr. Robinson, thank you for your service to humanity. Cabin crew, prepare for pushback and cross-check. Next stop, London Heathrow. Let's get this surgeon where she needs to be. The PA clicked off. In seat 1. Maya finally allowed herself to relax. She closed her eyes, leaned her head against the window, and for the first time in 36 hours, felt like she could breathe. Jennifer, the flight attendant, approached quietly. "Dr. Robinson, can I bring you anything?" "Just let me sleep," Maya said softly. "I have a long day ahead." "You'll get there," Jennifer said. "I promise." As Flight 214 pushed back from the gate and taxied toward the runway, David Park posted his final update to the live stream that had captivated hundreds of thousands of viewers. Final update. Racist passenger removed from flight. Banned for life from airline. Captain delivered one of the most powerful speeches I've ever heard. Surgeon is on her way to save a child's life. Faith in humanity restored. Hashtag Transatlantic Hero. Hashtag Dr. Maya Robinson. Hashtag Justice Served. Within minutes, the video had exploded across every platform. Twitter, 2.3 million views in 30 minutes. Hashtag Transatlantic Racism trending #1 worldwide. Hashtag Captain Douglas trending #3. Reddit. The video was posted to multiple subreddits. The thread on r/Justice Served hit 40,000 upvotes. The top comment: "This is what accountability looks like." TikTok creators were already cutting the video into shorter clips. Wait for the reveal videos were getting millions of views. The moment when Captain Douglas said she's flying to save Richard Caldwell's daughter was being replayed over and over. Instagram Carmen Rodriguez's photo of the empty seat 1B with the caption, "This seat was occupied by racism for 20 minutes. Now it's occupied by karma," went viral. 500,000 likes in an hour. Facebook. The video was being shared in hundreds of groups. Parents showed it to their children as a teaching moment. Teachers saved it for their classes. It was sparking conversations in living rooms across the country. Within 2 hours, mainstream media had picked up the story. TMZ. Caught on camera exec tries to kick surgeon off flight to medical emergency, CNN. Viral video shows passenger removed after racist tirade on transatlantic flight. BBC. American surgeon harassed on flight to London medical crisis. The New York Times. Incident on Flight 214 when assumptions about race meet reality. Inside the first-class cabin, passengers were still talking about what they'd witnessed. Arthur Whitmore was on the phone with his wife. "Darling, you won't believe what just happened. I'm going to be on the news tonight." James Mitchell was drafting a statement for the media. As an aviation attorney who witnessed this incident firsthand, I can confirm that Captain Douglas acted with complete professionalism and moral authority. Carmen was texting her sister. "I just watched the most insane display of instant karma in my entire life. I have it all on video." Jennifer, the flight attendant, stood in the galley with Emma, both of them shaking their heads. "I've been flying for 6 years," Jennifer said. "I've never seen anything like that." Emma nodded. "The captain is going to be famous by the time we land." In seat 1, Amaya was finally asleep, her noise-canceling headphones on her face, peaceful for the first time all morning. She didn't know she was trending worldwide, didn't know her name was being shared millions of times, didn't know she'd become a symbol. She was just a surgeon exhausted, flying to save a child's life. That's all she wanted to be. As Flight 214 reached cruising altitude somewhere over the Atlantic, the cabin lights dimmed. Most passengers settled in with books, movies, or sleep. The energy of the confrontation slowly faded into quiet murmurs and the gentle hum of jet engines. Maya finally slept. Her tablet lay open on her lap, Sophie Caldwell's medical file still displayed on the screen. The images showed a heart too small working too hard, fighting a battle it was destined to lose without intervention. Tetralogy of Fallot with severe pulmonary stenosis, a complex constellation of defects that most surgeons wouldn't dare touch. 4 separate problems all tangled together in a heart the size of a plum. Maya had operated on hundreds of children with similar defects. She knew every millimeter of the surgical field, knew where every vessel branched, where every nerve ran, where one wrong move could end a life. She'd spent 14 years mastering this surgery, had trained under the best, had developed her own techniques, had published papers that other surgeons studied. And in 6 hours she had put all of that knowledge to work trying to save the daughter of a man whose executive had just tried to throw her off this plane. The irony wasn't lost on her. But Maya didn't operate on children to prove points or teach lessons. She operated on them because they deserved to live. Because every child should get the chance to grow up, fall in love, make mistakes, find their purpose. Sophie Caldwell would get that chance, if Maya had anything to say about it. Jennifer brought her a warm blanket and a bottle of water, setting them quietly on the armrest without waking her. The plane flew on through the gray Atlantic morning, carrying its most important passenger toward the moment she was born to face. While Flight 214 crossed the Atlantic at 37,000 feet, Victoria Ashford sat in a windowless security office at JFK Airport, her career disintegrating in real time. The 2 Port Authority police officers had been professional but firm. They'd escorted her off the jet bridge through a private corridor and into this sterile room with concrete walls and fluorescent lighting that made everything look sickly and gray. Officer Rodriguez, a stern-faced woman in her 40s, completed the incident report. "Ms. Ashford, you're not being charged criminally at this time. However, Transatlantic Airways has filed a formal complaint. You're permanently banned from their airline." Victoria's hands shook as she signed the paperwork. "This is a mistake. If I could just speak to the captain, explain." "The captain filed the complaint," Officer Rodriguez said flatly. "There's nothing to explain." Victoria's phone, which had been buzzing nonstop for the past 20 minutes, lit up again. She looked at the screen and felt her stomach drop. 53 missed calls, 87 text messages, 14 voicemails. With trembling fingers, she scrolled through the messages. From her assistant, "Claire, Victoria, you're trending on Twitter. What happened?" From her sister, "Please tell me that's not you in the video." From her college roommate, "How could you do something like that?" From her neighbor, Everyone in the building is talking about you. From unknown numbers, racist trash. You deserve everything coming to you. Hope you lose your job. The whole world is watching you get what you deserve." Victoria's hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She opened Twitter. Hashtag Victoria Ashford was trending. Number 3 worldwide. She clicked on the hashtag. Video after video of her confrontation with Maya. Clips of her saying, "People like you don't belong here." Screenshots of her grabbing Maya's bag. Commentary from thousands of people she'd never met, all calling her a racist, a bigot, a monster. Someone had already found her LinkedIn profile, her company page, her professional headshots. They were being shared with captions like, "This is what privilege looks like," and "She thought she was untouchable." Officer Rodriguez cleared her throat. "Ms. Ashford, you're free to go, but I strongly suggest you get a lawyer. This is likely going to get worse before it gets better." Victoria stood on unsteady legs and walked out of the security office. The terminal felt like enemy territory. People were staring at her, whispering. Some were taking photos. A teenage girl walked past and said loudly to her friend, "Oh my God, that's her. That's the racist from the plane." Victoria pulled her jacket over her head and hurried toward the exit. She made it to her car in the long-term parking garage and sat in the driver's seat staring at her phone. She had to call Richard Caldwell, had to explain, had to somehow control the damage. But before she could dial, her phone rang. Claire, her assistant. Victoria answered. "Claire, I need you to book me on the next flight to London. Any airline. I don't care what it costs." There was a long pause. "I can't do that, Victoria." "What do you mean you can't?" Claire's voice was cold. "Mr. Caldwell called 20 minutes ago. He's seen the video, Victoria. He told me to tell you not to come to the London office. Don't come to the New York office. Don't call him. Don't email him. He's calling you in 2 minutes. He wanted to give you time to prepare." The line went dead. Victoria sat in her car alone, knowing her entire world was about to collapse. Her phone rang again. Richard Caldwell. She didn't want to answer, but she had no choice. Victoria Richards' voice was colder than she'd ever heard it, colder than Arctic ice. "Richard, please let me explain. My daughter is dying. Victoria." Richard's voice cracked on the last word. "The surgeon who might save her life. The only surgeon who can do this operation, you tried to have her thrown off the plane." I didn't know Victoria was crying now. "How could I possibly have known you assumed a black woman didn't belong in first class? That's all I need to know about who you are. Richard, we've been friends for 12 years. My family. You delayed Dr. Robinson by 35 minutes. 35 minutes my daughter might not have. Do you understand that I'm so sorry? If I had known she was..." "That's the problem, Victoria. You should have treated her with respect, regardless of who she was. Your behavior today is a violation of everything this company stands for." Victoria's voice became desperate. "Please don't do this. I'll donate to charity. I'll take sensitivity training. I'll apologize publicly. Just please don't." "You're fired," Richard said. "Effective immediately. Your severance is voided under the morals clause of your contract. Your corporate access is revoked. Security will pack your office and ship your personal items. Richard, please, I'm also calling every CEO in our network. Your behavior will be documented. You won't work in finance again. That's a promise." The line went dead. Victoria sat in her car in the parking garage, holding a silent phone. Her career destroyed, her reputation in ruins, her future gone. All because she couldn't imagine that a black woman belonged in first class. 8 hours and 43 minutes later, the wheels of Flight 214 kissed the wet tarmac at London Heathrow. The English morning was gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that made everything look like it was painted in watercolors. Maya woke as the plane touched down, her internal clock impossibly precise even after crossing 5 time zones. She checked her watch. They'd made up 18 minutes in the air. Captain Douglas had kept his promise. She pulled out her tablet and opened Sophie's latest scan sent just 2 hours ago. The images made her heart sink. The pulmonary stenosis was worsening. The right ventricle was enlarging. They were running out of time. The plane taxied to the gate, but Maya didn't stand up with the other passengers. She waited, checking her phone for updates from the hospital. A text from Dr. Patterson, the British cardiac surgeon who'd been monitoring Sophie. Patient deteriorating. BP dropping. Heart rate irregular. How soon can you be here? Maya typed back. Landing now. 20 minutes to hospital. The aircraft came to a stop. The seatbelt sign dinged off, but before passengers could start gathering their belongings, Captain Douglas's voice came over the PA one final time. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now parked at the gate. However, I'm asking all passengers to remain seated for just a moment while we facilitate priority deplaning for Dr. Robinson. She has a medical emergency waiting and every second counts. Maya stood, grabbed her carry-on. The cabin burst into applause again. Passengers she'd never spoken to reached out to shake her hand as she passed. Arthur Whitmore stood and saluted her. "Save that little girl, Doctor," Carmen Rodriguez called out. "You're my hero, Dr. Robinson." James Mitchell held out his business card again. "If you ever need anything, call me." Maya nodded to all of them, too focused on the task ahead to fully process what she'd just been through. At the aircraft door, Captain Douglas was waiting. He'd left the cockpit to see her off. "Dr. Robinson," he said, extending his hand. "It was an honor to fly you." Maya shook his hand. "Thank you, Captain, for everything." The captain's expression softened. "Go save that little girl, and don't let anyone ever make you feel like you don't belong somewhere. You belong everywhere your skills take you." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes for the first time all day. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and hurried off the plane. 2 Metropolitan Police officers were waiting at the gate, along with a hospital liaison in scrubs. "Dr. Robinson," the liaison said, "we have a helicopter waiting on the tarmac. This way, please." They didn't go through customs, didn't go through immigration. Maya was rushed through a series of restricted corridors, shown her diplomatic clearance that had been arranged by the hospital, and within 5 minutes, she was climbing into a helicopter. The rotors spun up. The aircraft lifted off. Below her, London sprawled in every direction, the Thames winding like a silver ribbon. Big Ben visible in the distance, thousands of lives being lived in buildings too small to see. And somewhere in one of those buildings, a little girl was fighting for her life. The pilot's voice came through her headset. "Dr. Robinson Royal London Hospital is 7 minutes away. They've cleared the helipad. Or is prepped and ready." Maya closed her eyes. 7 minutes. Then she'd scrub in. Then she'd do what she'd spent 14 years training to do. Save a life. In the private family waiting room on the 7th floor of Royal London Hospital, Richard Caldwell looked like a ghost of the powerful executive he normally was. His $5,000 suit was wrinkled beyond recognition. His tie was gone, discarded somewhere hours ago. His normally perfectly combed hair stood up in wild tufts where he'd been running his hands through it. His eyes were bloodshot, rimmed with red from crying and exhaustion. He sat slumped in a vinyl chair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Beside him, his wife Lauren looked equally devastated. Neither had slept. Neither had eaten. They'd been in this room for 22 hours watching their daughter slip further away with each passing minute. A nurse entered. "Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Robinson has arrived. She's scrubbing in now." Richard's head snapped up. Thank God. Oh, thank God. How long until surgery starts? 10 minutes. Dr. Robinson said she'll update you every 2 hours during the procedure. Richard stood so fast his chair tipped backward. He caught it with one hand, his other hand gripping Lauren's. Can we see Sophie before she goes under? She's already sedated, sir, but Dr. Robinson said you can see her after the surgery. Lauren started crying again. Quiet, exhausted tears that she didn't bother to wipe away. After the nurse left, Richard pulled out his phone. The screen showed 247 missed calls, 412 unread emails, messages from board members, executives, journalists, friends, family, and one message that made his jaw clench. From his head of security sent 90 minutes ago. Sir, incident report from JFK this morning. Victoria Ashford was removed from Flight 214 for harassing Dr. Robinson. Video has 5 million views. Media requesting comment. What should I tell them? Richard had already watched the video 3 times. Each time his rage grew hotter. He'd watched Victoria point at Maya Robinson and say, "People like you don't belong here." He'd watched her grab Maya's bag. He'd watched her dismiss Maya's credentials, question her ticket, try to use Richard's own name as a weapon. The woman flying to save his daughter's life. The woman whose expertise was literally Sophie's only hope. And one of his own executives had tried to throw her off the plane. Richard opened his notes app and began typing a statement. He'd release it the moment Sophie came out of surgery. Lauren touched his arm. "What are you doing?" "Making sure Victoria Ashford never works again," Richard said quietly, "and making sure the world knows what kind of surgeon Dr. Robinson is." Richard had built his career on being ruthless when necessary. Right now it was necessary. He typed, "I want to address the incident on Flight 214 this morning. Victoria Ashford is no longer employed by Caldwell Global Investments. Her behavior was reprehensible and does not represent our company's values. Dr. Maya Robinson is a hero. She is the reason my daughter has a chance to live. I will be forever grateful to her, to Captain Douglas, and to everyone who stood up against discrimination today." He saved the draft. He'd post it the moment he knew Sophie was safe. A hospital administrator appeared in the doorway. "Mr. Caldwell, Dr. Robinson asked me to give you this." She handed him a tablet. On the screen was a message in Maya's handwriting. "Mr. Caldwell, I know you're terrified. I know the statistics are scary. But I need you to know I've done this surgery 76 times. I've never lost a patient. Sophie is strong. Her heart is strong enough to handle the repair. I will do everything in my power to bring your daughter back to you. Dr. Maya Robinson." Richard read it twice, then handed it to Lauren. She read it and finally smiled for the first time in 24 hours. "I believe her," Lauren whispered. "Don't you?" Richard nodded. "I do." He looked at his phone at the video of Victoria harassing this woman who was now their last hope. "I believe her because someone who can stay that calm under that kind of pressure is exactly who I want operating on my daughter." They sat back down to wait. The next 8 hours would be the longest of their lives. Dr. Maya Robinson stood at the surgical scrub sink, her hands moving in the precise rhythmic pattern she'd performed thousands of times. Soap, water, scrub, rinse, repeat. The ritual was meditative, a way to transition from the chaos of the world outside into the focused clarity required for what came next. Through the window of OR3, she could see the surgical team preparing. 8-year-old Sophie Caldwell lay on the table already intubated and sedated. She looked impossibly small under the surgical drapes. Fragile, vulnerable, mortal. Maya dried her hands, pushed through the double doors with her back, and held her arms up for the scrub nurse to gown and glove her, and the team was already assembled and waiting. Dr. Elizabeth Hartley, the anesthesiologist, sat at the head of the table, monitoring screens full of numbers that represented Sophie's tenuous hold on life. Dr. James Patterson, a British cardiac surgeon, stood opposite where Maya would work. Nurse Sarah Kim was at the instrument table, every tool laid out with precision. Nurse Michael Torres circulated, ready to provide whatever was needed. BP is 95/60, Dr. Hartley reported. Heart rate 78. Oxygen saturation 94%. She's ready when you are, Dr. Robinson. Maya stepped up to the table. She looked down at Sophie's face, peaceful in unconsciousness. This child had no idea that her life hung in the balance. No idea that a room full of strangers was about to try to save her. No idea that her father's executive had tried to prevent this moment from happening. But none of that mattered now. All that mattered was the surgery. "Let's give this little girl her life back," Maya said. She held out her hand. Scalpel. Sarah placed the cool metal handle in her palm. Maya made the first incision, a single clean line down the sternum. No hesitation. No second guessing. Just the absolute certainty that comes from having done this so many times that it's become muscle memory. The rib retractor went in. Sophie's tiny chest opened, revealing the heart that was trying so hard to keep her alive. "Jesus," Maya breathed. "The pulmonary stenosis is worse than the scans showed." James peered over her shoulder. "Can you repair it?" Maya's eyes narrowed as she studied the anatomy. The pulmonary valve was nearly fused shut. The right ventricle was swollen and struggling. The ventricular septal defect, the hole between the heart's chambers, was larger than expected. "I don't have a choice," Maya said. "We're going on bypass. Sarah, prep the cannulation." The next 20 minutes were a carefully orchestrated dance. Tubes were inserted into Sophie's blood vessels. The heart-lung machine was connected. Maya worked with absolute precision, her hands steady, her focus laser-sharp. "Bypass initiated," Dr. Hartley announced. Heart rate dropping, 60, 50, 40. "We're stopping the heart now," Maya said. She injected cardioplegia solution directly into Sophie's coronary arteries. The tiny heart, which had been beating frantically, slowly came to a stop. Heart stopped. "You have the field," Dr. Hartley said. Maya had a window, maybe 4 hours, maybe 5. After that, the risk of permanent damage increased exponentially with every passing minute. She looked at James. "I'm going to repair the VSD first, then reconstruct the valve. This is going to be delicate." "I'm ready," James said. Maya picked up a microscalpel and bent over the surgical microscope. The hole in the ventricular septum was now clearly visible, a defect about the size of a dime in a heart smaller than her fist. "Patch material." Sarah handed her the Gore-Tex patch. Maya began suturing it in place, working in millimeters. Each stitch had to be perfect. Too loose and blood would leak through. Too tight and it would tear the delicate tissue. 45 minutes passed. Maya didn't straighten up, didn't pause. Each stitch was placed with absolute precision. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Michael dabbed it away without being asked. "BP on bypass is stable," Dr. Hartley reported, temperature holding steady. "Patch is secure," Maya finally said, straightening up and rolling her shoulders. Now for the hard part. The pulmonary valve was a disaster. Calcified stenotic, barely functional. Maya would have to cut away the damaged tissue and reconstruct the valve from scratch. This was where everything could go wrong. She worked for the next 2 hours in near silence, interrupted only by periodic updates from the anesthesiologist. Her world narrowed to what she could see through the microscope. The rest of the OR faded away. There was only the heart, the tissue, the sutures. James assisted anticipating her needs, providing retraction exactly where and when she needed it. They'd never worked together before, but they moved like a team that had done this 100 times. Oxygen saturation dropping. Dr. Hartley said, tension creeping into her voice. 88%. 86%. "I see it," Maya said, not looking up. "Give me 2 more minutes." 84%. Maya, We're running out of time. I'm done. Preparing to come off bypass. Maya stepped back from the table. The surgical field looked perfect. The patch was secure. The valve was reconstructed. But the real test was about to come. Restart the heart. Dr. Hartley administered the electric shock. Once. Twice. Nothing. Again, Maya said, her voice steady. A third shock. A beep on the monitor. Then another. Then a steady rhythm. Sophie's heart was beating on its own. BP coming up. Dr. Hartley said, relief flooding her voice. 85/50. Heart rate 82. Oxygen saturation climbing 90%. 92%. 94%. 96%. The valve is holding, James said, watching the echo screen. The repair is perfect. Maya closed her eyes for just a moment. That rush of relief and exhaustion and triumph that came with every successful surgery washed over her. But they weren't done yet. She spent the next hour closing layer by layer, making sure every suture was perfect. By the time she placed the final staple in Sophie's skin, she'd been standing for 10 hours straight. She stepped back from the table. Let's get her to ICU. As the team prepared Sophie for transport, Maya pulled off her surgical gloves and mask. Her hands were shaking slightly from the adrenaline crash. Her feet ached, her shoulders burned, but Sophie was alive, and the repair was perfect. James pulled his mask down, grinning. Maya, that was extraordinary. I've never seen a valve reconstruction that clean on a defect that severe. She's not out of the woods yet, Maya said. Next 48 hours are critical. But for the first time since she'd received the emergency call 40 hours ago, Maya allowed herself to believe that Sophie Caldwell was going to survive. Maya walked into the private waiting room still wearing her surgical scrubs, her hair flattened by the surgical cap, deep indentations from her magnifying loops still visible on her nose. She'd been standing for 10 hours. Every muscle in her body ached, but she was smiling. Richard Caldwell bolted to his feet the second he saw her, his face a mask of terror and hope. Doctor, the surgery was successful, Maya said. Sophie is stable. Lauren Caldwell let out a sound somewhere between a sob and a gasp. Her knees buckled and she collapsed back into her chair, crying into her hands. Richard grabbed the wall for support, his legs shaking. She's okay. Richard's voice broke on the words. We repaired the ventricular septal defect and reconstructed the pulmonary valve. Maya explained, her voice calm and professional despite her exhaustion. The repair is solid. Her heart is beating normally. All vital signs are strong. Can we see her? Lauren asked through her tears. She's in ICU recovery right now. She'll be sedated for the next 12 hours to let her body rest. But yes, you can see her. One at a time, 5 minutes each, starting in about 20 minutes. Richard crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed Maya's hand with both of his. You saved my daughter's life. I don't have words for what that means. Maya looked at him, this powerful CEO who'd been reduced to tears by the fear of losing his child. She understood that fear. She'd seen it in hundreds of parents' eyes. Mr. Caldwell, Maya said carefully, I need to say something. One of your employees tried to prevent me from getting on that flight. Richard's expression hardened instantly. I know. I've seen the video. Victoria Ashford no longer works for this company, or any company I have influence with. I'm not asking for vengeance, Maya said firmly. I'm asking that you use this moment to look at your company, to ask why someone felt comfortable enough to act that way while representing your organization. That kind of assumption doesn't come from nowhere. Richard nodded slowly. You're right. And I promise you, Dr. Robinson, things are going to change. We're implementing new policies, new training, new oversight. What happened to you will never happen to anyone else on my watch. Lauren stood up, wiping her eyes. Can we see Sophie now? A nurse appeared at the door. Mr. and Mrs. Caldwell, you can come see your daughter now. One at a time, please. Lauren went first. Through the ICU window, Maya watched as she approached Sophie's bed, careful not to disturb the IV lines and monitors. She touched her daughter's small hand and broke down completely, her shoulders shaking with sobs of relief. Richard stood beside Maya, watching his wife and daughter through the glass. Dr. Robinson, he said quietly, what happened on that plane this morning? I can't apologize enough. You didn't do anything wrong, Maya said. Your employee did. But she was representing my company, using my name as a weapon. That reflects on me. He turned to look at her. I've spent 20 years building this company. I thought I knew what we stood for. But clearly I wasn't paying attention to what was actually happening, to who we were hiring, to what they believed they could get away with. Change is hard, Maya said, but it's necessary, and from what I've seen today, you're willing to do the work. Richard nodded. The video has been viewed more than 10 million times now. People are asking what I'm going to do. I'm going to show them. Inside the ICU, Sophie's eyelids fluttered. Even through the sedation, some part of her knew her mother was there. Maya watched the little girl breathe, watched the monitors show a strong, steady heartbeat, and felt the familiar warmth that came with these moments. This was why she'd become a surgeon. Not for fame or recognition or to prove anyone wrong. For this. For the moment when a mother could touch her daughter's hand and know she'd get to watch her grow up. Mr. Caldwell. Maya said, I'm going to head back to my hotel now. I'll be back first thing tomorrow morning to check on Sophie. But she's going to be fine. She's going to live a full, normal life. Richard's eyes filled with tears again. Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Thank you for getting on that plane despite everything. Thank you for staying calm. Thank you for saving my daughter. Maya nodded, too exhausted for more words, and walked out of the ICU. She'd been awake for 42 hours straight. She'd faced discrimination and harassment. She'd performed one of the most complex surgeries of her career. And she'd saved a life. That was enough. 3,000 miles away in New York City, Victoria Ashford's life continued its free fall into oblivion. She sat in her $4 million Manhattan apartment, the one with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the one that cost $18,000 a month, and watched her entire existence disintegrate on a laptop screen. The articles kept coming. New York Times. When assumptions about race meet accountability, Washington Post. Finance executive fired after viral racist tirade. Financial Times. Caldwell Global acts swiftly after employees' discriminatory behavior. CNN had run the story 3 times in the last 2 hours. BBC was covering it internationally. Even Al Jazeera had picked it up. And the video. The cursed video. It had been viewed 12 million times now. 12 million people had watched her say, "People like you don't belong here." 12 million people had seen her grab Maya Robinson's bag. 12 million people had witnessed her complete destruction. Victoria's phone was a weapon now. Every notification was another wound. Her mother. How could you do this to our family? Your father is humiliated. Her sister. Don't call me. I can't defend this. I can't defend you. Her daughter, a sophomore at Cornell. Mom, everyone at school is asking if it's really you. They're calling you racist. Is it true? Did you really do that? That message had broken something in Victoria. She'd tried to call her daughter 3 times. All 3 calls went to voicemail. Her ex-husband had texted, "Well, you finally did it. You destroyed your career with your own arrogance. Don't ask me for money. You're on your own." Victoria opened LinkedIn. Her profile page had been flooded with comments. "This is what corporate racism looks like. I will never do business with anyone who hires this woman. She should be blacklisted from every industry." Someone had created a Wikipedia page about the incident. It was already one of the most viewed pages on the site. Victoria's professional headshot had been turned into memes, hundreds of them, thousands. Her face next to captions like, "When you see a black person in first class," and "Karen meets karma," and "How to destroy your career in 20 minutes." Her name was a punchline, a cautionary tale, a symbol of everything wrong with corporate America. She'd tried calling 3 headhunters that morning. All 3 had declined to represent her. "I'm sorry, Victoria, but you're radioactive right now. No one will touch you. Maybe in 5 years after this dies down, but right now, you're unhireable. Have you considered changing your name and moving to another country?" She'd tried applying to jobs online. Her applications were rejected within minutes. One company sent an auto reply, "Thank you for your interest, but we do not believe you are a cultural fit for our organization." Cultural fit. That was code for, "We saw the video." Victoria opened her banking app. Her severance had been voided. Her stock options worth nearly $2 million had been canceled. Her retirement account was untouchable for another 10 years. She had maybe $200,000 in liquid assets. In Manhattan, that would last less than 2 years. Her apartment lease was up for renewal in 3 months. There was no way she could afford the increase. A LinkedIn notification popped up. Someone had edited her profile without permission. Her job title now read, "Former SVP at Caldwell Global fired for racism." Someone had added a new skill, discrimination. Her endorsements now included, "Expert in revealing her true character on camera." Victoria tried to fix it, but her account had been hacked. She couldn't log back in. Her phone rang, a number she didn't recognize. She answered it, hoping it might be someone offering help. Victoria Ashford, a reporter's voice, asked, "Yes, I'm calling from the Associated Press. We're running a story on you, and I wanted to give you a chance to comment. Do you have anything to say to Dr. Maya Robinson?" Victoria hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Another reporter. She turned off her phone. But she couldn't turn off the laptop. Couldn't stop herself from reading the comments, from watching the view count climb, from seeing her life become a cautionary tale told to millions of people. At 3 p.m., a process server knocked on her door with a lawsuit. James Mitchell, the attorney from the plane, was representing Maya Robinson in a civil suit for harassment and emotional distress. At 5 p.m., her doorman called up. "Ms. Ashford, there are reporters in the lobby asking to speak with you. Should I send them away?" "Yes. Don't let anyone up." At 7 p.m., someone slipped a letter under her door. It was from her co-op board. "We've received complaints from other residents regarding recent media attention. We need to discuss your continued residency." At 9 p.m., she finally broke down. She sat on her $15,000 Italian leather couch in her designer apartment, surrounded by the trappings of success, and cried harder than she'd cried since she was a child. She'd spent 20 years building her career, 2 decades of 80-hour weeks, countless missed family events, sacrificed relationships, all to climb to the top of one of the most competitive industries in the world. And she'd destroyed it all in 20 minutes because she couldn't stand sitting next to a black woman on an airplane. The worst part, the part that made her feel physically sick, was that she'd been so sure she was right. So certain that Maya Robinson didn't belong. So convinced of her own judgment. And she'd been spectacularly, publicly, permanently wrong. Her laptop dinged with a new notification. Richard Caldwell had posted a statement. Victoria opened it, knowing she shouldn't, unable to stop herself. "I want to address the incident on Flight 214. Victoria Ashford is no longer employed by Caldwell Global Investments." Her behavior was reprehensible and does not represent our company values. Dr. Maya Robinson is a hero who saved my daughter's life. I will be forever grateful to her and to everyone who stood up against discrimination." Below the statement, 500,000 likes, 80,000 shares, 40,000 comments, all praising Richard's swift action. Victoria closed the laptop. She sat in the dark, and she understood finally that there was no coming back from this, no apology that would matter, no amount of time that would make people forget. She'd have to move, change her name maybe, start over in some small town where no one knew her face. The life she'd built was gone. The reputation she'd cultivated was destroyed. The legacy she'd hoped to leave was now a warning to others, all because she'd looked at a brilliant surgeon and seen only skin color. All because she'd assumed she was better than someone she'd never met. All because she'd believed that wealth and status gave her the right to treat another human being like they didn't matter. Karma hadn't just arrived. It had buried her alive. The London weather had shifted from dreary February rain to the tentative warmth of early May. Sophie Caldwell, now 9 years old, bounced into the exam room at Royal London Hospital wearing a bright pink t-shirt that read "Heart Surgery Survivor" with a glittery heart graphic. Her pigtails bounced as she hopped up onto the examination table. "Dr. Robinson. Look, I can do a cartwheel now. Want to see?" Maya laughed the first genuine laugh she'd had in weeks. "Not in the exam room, sweetheart. But I believe you." She placed her stethoscope on Sophie's chest and listened. The sound was music to her ears, a strong, steady rhythm, no murmurs, no irregularities. Perfect. "Your heart sounds amazing, Sophie. Strong and steady." Sophie beamed. "Does that mean I can play football, like real football with running and everything?" Maya glanced at Richard and Lauren, who were sitting in chairs against the wall. Both looked healthier than they had 3 months ago, rested happy, no longer carrying the weight of terror. "Not tackle football," Maya said, "but soccer." "Absolutely. Swimming. Yes. Regular running and playing. All of it. Your heart can handle it now." Sophie pumped her fist in the air. "Yes. Dad, did you hear that I can try out for the school team?" "I heard," Richard said, smiling. "We'll sign you up next week," after Sophie was taken down the hall by a nurse to get her celebratory ice cream. A tradition they'd started at her first post-op appointment. Richard and Lauren stayed behind. "Dr. Robinson," Richard said, pulling out his tablet. "I wanted to give you an update on the changes we've made." He opened a document and turned the screen toward Maya. "Caldwell Global Investments, Equity and Inclusion Initiative. New policies implemented mandatory bias awareness training for all employees. Completion rate, 100%. Anonymous reporting system for discrimination. 47 reports filed. 12 employees disciplined. Diverse interview panels required for all hiring. Partnership with civil rights organizations for third-party audits. $5 million fund for workplace equity programs." "Is it working?" Maya asked. Richard nodded. "We've promoted 6 employees who were being overlooked. We've parted ways with 3 executives whose behavior was problematic. And our employee satisfaction scores among underrepresented groups have increased by 40%. "That's impressive," Maya said. "But is it sustainable? Or will people lose interest once the news cycle moves on?" "That's why we hired a chief equity officer," Lauren interjected. "She reports directly to Richard and the board." "This isn't a publicity stunt. It's permanent infrastructure." Richard pulled up another document. "And Transatlantic Airways has made changes too. I spoke with their CEO last week. Transatlantic Airways, new policies. Zero-tolerance discrimination policy with immediate removal and lifetime bans. Body cameras for all flight attendants. Quarterly bias training for all crew members. Partnership with civil rights groups for oversight. $500,000 donation to racial justice organizations. Captain Douglas was promoted to Chief of Flight Operations, Richard added. Jennifer Lopez and Maria Gonzalez both received commendations and substantial bonuses, and they're using what happened as a training case study for how to handle discrimination incidents. Maya absorbed this information. It was more than she'd hoped for, but less than what was needed. Change was always slow, always insufficient, but it was something. What about Victoria? Maya asked, surprising herself with the question. Richard's expression hardened. She's working at a small regional bank in Connecticut, making about a third of her former salary. Her social media is still full of harassment. She tried to move to London to start over, but the video followed her. He paused. I don't take pleasure in her suffering, Dr. Robinson, but I can't forgive what she did. She didn't just insult you. She nearly cost me my daughter. I hope she learned something from this, Maya said quietly. I hope she becomes a better person. But that's her journey, not mine. Lauren smiled. You're remarkably gracious. I don't know if I could be. I'm not gracious, Maya said. I'm just tired. Tired of being angry. Tired of fighting. I'd rather spend my energy saving lives than seeking revenge. Richard pulled up one more thing on his tablet. Dr. Robinson, there's something else. Sophie isn't the only life you saved. He turned the screen to show her an article from the New York Times. The Sophie Effect, How One Viral Video Changed Airline Policies Nationwide. The article detailed how 4 major airlines had implemented similar zero-tolerance policies after Flight 214, how bias training had become mandatory across the industry, how passengers felt safer reporting discrimination. You didn't just save my daughter, Richard said. You sparked a conversation that's changing an entire industry. Maya read the article, feeling a complex mix of emotions. She'd never wanted to be a symbol, never wanted to be famous, never wanted her face to represent a movement. She just wanted to be a surgeon. But maybe she thought if Sophie could run and play because of her surgery, and if other passengers could fly without harassment because of what had happened on Flight 214, maybe it was worth it. Sophie burst back into the room, chocolate ice cream on her face. Dr. Maya. Dr. Maya. Dad said you're going back to America soon. I am, Maya said, kneeling down to Sophie's level. I have other patients who need me. Sophie threw her arms around Maya's neck. Thank you for fixing my heart. Maya hugged her back, feeling tears prick at her eyes for the first time since the surgery. You're very welcome, sweetheart. Now go live an amazing life. Okay, I will, Sophie said. I'm going to be a doctor like you when I grow up, as Sophie ran off to show her parents her ice cream-covered face. Maya stood. Her eyes were wet, but she was smiling. This moment, this little girl who would grow up and maybe save lives of her own someday. This was why Maya had become a surgeon. Not for viral videos or news coverage or policy changes. For Sophie. For every child who deserved a chance to grow up. For every family who deserved to stay whole. That was enough. That was everything. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in JFK Airport, pulling her carry-on behind her. She'd spent 3 weeks in London. The surgery follow-up appointments, a speaking engagement at Royal College of Surgeons, and 2 more emergency consultations on complex cardiac cases. She was exhausted. Her body ached for her own bed, her own coffee maker, her own quiet apartment where no one would recognize her or ask her for interviews. At the transatlantic ticket counter, the agent's eyes widened the moment she saw Maya's name on the screen. Dr. Robinson. Oh my goodness, you're the doctor from the video. Maya forced a tired smile. That's me. The agent picked up a phone immediately. Within 2 minutes, a manager appeared, the same manager who'd been on duty during the incident 3 months ago. Dr. Robinson, the manager said, practically breathless. On behalf of Transatlantic Airways, we'd like to upgrade you to our premium first-class suite, complimentary. And Captain Douglas specifically requested to fly your route home today. That's very kind, Maya said, but it's not necessary. Please, the manager insisted, let us do this. After what happened, we want to make this right. Maya was too tired to argue. Fine. Thank you. 30 minutes later, she boarded Flight 213, the reverse route of the flight that had changed her life. She settled into Seat 1A, the same seat number, the same route. But everything felt different now. Flight attendants recognized her immediately. One brought her warm towels and a glass of champagne without being asked. Another asked for a photo. A third simply said thank you and moved on. Captain Douglas's voice came over the PA before pushback. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. 3 months ago, this airline made news for all the wrong reasons. Today, I'm proud to welcome back Dr. Maya Robinson, who showed us all what grace under pressure looks like. Applause rippled through the cabin. Dr. Robinson is returning to New York after saving the life of an 8-year-old girl in London. She spent 3 weeks consulting on complex cardiac cases and training surgeons. She represents everything this airline stands for: excellence, dignity, and service to humanity. More applause. It is my profound honor to fly her home today. Thank you, Dr. Robinson, for choosing to fly with us again. Maya kept her headphones off this time, accepting the recognition even though it made her uncomfortable. People needed heroes, she supposed. And if being briefly famous meant other passengers would face less discrimination, she could live with it. As the plane climbed toward cruising altitude, Maya looked out the window at the clouds below. She thought about Victoria Ashford, wondering where she was now, what she was doing, whether she'd learned anything. Maya didn't feel triumphant about Victoria's downfall. She felt sad. Sad that it had taken public humiliation for accountability to happen. Sad that videos and viral outrage were more effective than years of complaints and reports. Sad that nothing ever seemed to change until it was captured on camera and shared millions of times. But she also felt hopeful, because Sophie was running and playing, because Captain Douglas had been promoted, because policies were changing, because maybe, just maybe, the next black woman in first class wouldn't have to prove she belonged there. A flight attendant approached. Dr. Robinson, there's a young woman in premium economy who asked if she could speak with you for just a moment. I told her I'd ask. Maya hesitated, then nodded. Sure. A teenage girl, maybe 16 or 17, approached nervously. She was black, wearing a hoodie from MIT. Dr. Robinson, I'm sorry to bother you. I needed to tell you something. Maya smiled. It's fine. What's your name? Jasmine. The girl twisted her hands nervously. I saw the video of what happened to you. And I've been accepted to pre-med at Cornell, but I was thinking about not going. Because I'm scared. Scared of people treating me the way that woman treated you. Maya's heart ached. She gestured to the empty seat beside her. Sit down, Jasmine. The girl sat. You're going to face people like Victoria Ashford, Maya said honestly. Multiple times. In medical school, in residency, in your career. People will underestimate you. They'll assume you're not qualified. They'll question everything you do. Jasmine's face fell. But Maya continued. Those people don't matter. What matters is the lives you'll save. The patients who'll get better because of your skill. The families who'll stay whole because you refuse to give up. She reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. This has my email. When you start medical school, reach out to me. I'll mentor you. I'll help you navigate the system. And when you graduate, there's a position waiting for you on my team at New York Presbyterian if you want it. Jasmine's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Maya said. Don't let people like Victoria Ashford steal your dream. The world needs doctors like you. Go to Cornell, study hard, and prove to yourself, not to them, that you belong there." Jasmine wiped her eyes. "Thank you, Dr. Robinson. Thank you so much." As the girl returned to her seat, Maya leaned back and closed her eyes. Maybe this was what the viral video had been for. Not for punishment or revenge, but for this. For Jasmine. For every young black woman who needed to see someone who looked like her succeeding despite the obstacles. If that was the legacy of Flight 214, Maya could live with that. She could live with that just fine. 6 months after the incident on Flight 214, Maya stood in her office at New York Presbyterian Hospital, looking at the framed photo on her desk. It was Sophie Caldwell at her 10th birthday party, holding a homemade sign that read, "Thank you, Dr. Maya, for my heart," with a glittery red heart drawn below. Richard had sent it along with a video of Sophie doing cartwheels in the backyard, laughing and healthy and so incredibly alive. A knock at the door pulled Maya from her thoughts. Jennifer Lopez, the flight attendant from Flight 214, stood in the hallway looking nervous. Jennifer, Maya said, surprised. "What are you doing here? I'm visiting New York for a few days. I wanted to thank you in person. For everything." Maya gestured her inside. Jennifer sat in one of the chairs across from Maya's desk. "I've been thinking about that day for 6 months," Jennifer said. "I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. I almost walked away and let someone else handle it." "But you didn't," Maya said. "You stayed. You tried to help." Jennifer shook her head. "But I wasn't strong enough. I let Victoria push me around. I should have been more forceful. Should have called for backup sooner." "You were 28 years old facing down a powerful executive," Maya said gently. "You did your best in an impossible situation. And you know what? Watching you try to de-escalate, watching you stay professional even when you were terrified, that mattered. You showed me that not everyone working for that airline agreed with what was happening." Jennifer smiled, tears in her eyes. "I report every incident now. I don't let anyone bully passengers anymore. I've filed 3 discrimination reports in the last 6 months. Other flight attendants are doing the same." "That's exactly what needs to happen," Maya said. After Jennifer left, Maya opened her email. There was a message from a high school teacher in Ohio. "Dr. Robinson, you don't know me, but I was on Flight 214. I teach American history to juniors. The Monday after the incident, I showed the video to my students. We talked about civil rights, about standing up for what's right, about the power of witnesses. One of my students, a young black girl named Keisha, who's been struggling, stayed after class. She asked me, 'Can I really be a doctor? Even if people don't believe I can?' I told her about you, about your calm, about your skill, about how you saved a child's life despite everything. She's now the top student in her chemistry class. She's joined our pre-med club. She talks about you constantly. Thank you for being the example she needed." Maya read the letter twice, then saved it in a folder she'd created called Why This Matters. The folder now contained 47 similar messages. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard Caldwell. "Dr. Robinson, Sophie made the school soccer team. She scored a goal in her first game. Thought you'd want to know. We think about you every day. Thank you for giving us our daughter back." Attached was a photo of Sophie in a soccer uniform, muddy and grinning. Maya set down her phone and looked out the window of her office. The New York skyline stretched before her, millions of lives being lived in buildings she couldn't count. She thought about Victoria Ashford. About the last thing she'd heard, that Victoria was working at a small bank in Connecticut, living in a modest apartment, her days of Manhattan penthouses and corporate power long gone. Maya didn't feel satisfaction at Victoria's downfall. She felt nothing. The woman had become irrelevant to her life. What mattered was Sophie. Was Jasmine. Was Keisha in Ohio and every other young person who'd seen the video and realized they could be more than the world told them they could be. What mattered were the policy changes at Transatlantic and the other airlines that followed. The training programs, the reporting systems, the small incremental shifts toward accountability. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. A hospital administrator appeared at her door. "Dr. Robinson, your 2 p.m. consult is here. 7-year-old with truncus arteriosus. The family specifically requested you." Maya stood, straightened her white coat. This was who she was. Not the doctor from the viral video, not a symbol or a celebrity or a martyr, just a surgeon. Someone who fixed hearts. Someone who gave children a chance to live. As she walked down the hall toward the consultation room, she passed a bulletin board with a newspaper clipping pinned to it. The headline, "The Sophie Effect: How One Incident Changed Airline Industry Policies." Maya didn't stop to read it. She'd already lived it. Already done the interviews and given the speeches and explained to countless reporters why she'd stayed calm, why she hadn't responded with anger, why she'd just wanted to do her job. She was tired of explaining, tired of being a symbol. She just wanted to save lives. The consultation room door opened. A family sat inside, mother, father, small boy with scared eyes. Maya recognized that fear, saw it in families every week. She sat down across from them and smiled. "Hi, I'm Dr. Robinson. Let's talk about how we're going to fix your son's heart." Outside her office, the framed photo of Sophie Caldwell stayed on the desk, a reminder of why the hard days were worth it. Next to it, a new edition, a letter from Jasmine, the girl from the plane starting her first year at Cornell. "Dear Dr. Robinson, I'm here because you showed me it was possible. Thank you for not giving up. I won't either." Maya Robinson had been underestimated, dismissed, and discriminated against more times than she could count. But she'd never let anyone stop her from being exactly who she was meant to be. A surgeon, a healer, a woman who belonged wherever her skills took her, and no one, no matter how wealthy, how powerful, how privileged, could ever take that away from her. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. This story, like all the stories on this channel, is about more than just one incident on one airplane. It's about something that runs much deeper in our society. Here's what I need you to understand. What happened to Maya Robinson wasn't extraordinary. It was ordinary. It was just filmed. Thousands of black professionals, black travelers, black human beings face these assumptions every single day. In airports, in hospitals, in stores, in boardrooms, in first-class cabins. The only difference is that most of the time there's no camera, no live stream, no viral video, no justice. So let me share 3 lessons I hope you'll carry with you after watching this. First, your assumptions reveal who you are. Victoria Ashford didn't see a surgeon when she looked at Maya. She saw skin color and made a judgment. She was so certain, so absolutely convinced that she couldn't possibly be wrong. How many times do we do the same thing in smaller, quieter ways? How many times do we look at someone and decide we know their story before they've said a single word? Second dignity is a choice. Maya could have yelled, could have argued, could have matched Victoria's aggression with her own. Instead, she stayed calm, stayed focused, stayed centered on what actually mattered, getting to London to save a child's life. That's real strength, not the loud, performative kind. The quiet, unshakable kind that comes from knowing your own worth, regardless of what others think. Third, standing up changes everything. Arthur Whitmore could have stayed hidden behind his newspaper. David Park could have kept his phone in his pocket. Carmen Rodriguez and James Mitchell could have looked away. But they didn't. They spoke up. They filmed. They refused to let hate happen in silence. Every single one of those witnesses made justice possible. Be like them. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Victoria Ashford only faced consequences because her behavior was filmed and went viral. Think about that. How many Victorias get away with it every day because there's no camera? How many talented people are dismissed, overlooked, or humiliated simply because someone decided they don't belong? This story had a happy ending. Sophie lived. Maya got justice. Policies changed. But most stories don't end this way. Most incidents of discrimination happen in the shadows with no witnesses, no videos, no accountability. So here's what I'm asking you to do. When you see discrimination, even subtle discrimination, speak up. Document it if you can. Report it. Don't let it slide just because it's uncomfortable. And when someone tells you about their experience with bias, believe them. They've lived it. You haven't. Remember Victoria Ashford the next time you catch yourself making assumptions about someone based on their appearance. Remember Captain Douglas the next time you have the power to hold someone accountable. Remember Maya Robinson the next time someone tries to tell you that you don't belong somewhere. If this story moved you, share it. Subscribe. And most importantly, be the person who speaks up the next time you see injustice. Because change doesn't happen when we stay silent. It happens when we refuse to look away. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next story.